This is a tool that I created basically in response to a conversation I had with my friend and colleague Renee. It was basically in response to a story she was talking about in terms of really trying to decide as a project lead or as a project manager how much time you invest in aligning activities, things like getting on the same page in terms of what your goals and priorities are, or talking about working agreements, etc., versus making sure you take enough time to just get the work done. In the past couple of weeks since having that conversation with Renee, I felt like this same theme has been cropping up in other places. It's certainly something that I've thought about a lot in the past. And so I started brainstorming ways to kind of counter this, or at least support you in thinking about how to kind of solve this problem. And I created this version zero point 0.1 tool called Alignment Accounting. And basically, there are a couple of components to it. The first component is to just sit down and to take stock in how people are expected to make time to do the work, both individually and collaboratively. And so it's very simple. If I'm working on a project with a team, I just want to sit down and I want to talk about, okay, individually, people are expected to work, say, at least 50% of their own individual time on their projects. And then you've got maybe, a 1 hour team call once a week. And then maybe you do like a group full team retreat every 6 months. And then maybe there's like a 15-minute standing call 5 days a week, etc. And so you basically want to just sit down and take stock of what you're already doing. And this is essentially a gut check. It's an opportunity for you to see like how much time are you actually asking of people in terms of group time. Sometimes as teams, we invest way too much in meetings to try and solve problems and whatnot. And maybe there might be lighter weight ways to give people time to do stuff. If your expectation is people should have about 50% of their week to basically devote to just the work, and they're spending more than 50% of their time in meetings, this is a way to kind of identify that beforehand. But I think more importantly, especially from the standpoint of a project manager or a project lead, hopefully this gives you a sense of abundance, and recognizing that in fact that there are a lot of different ways to connect with people. It doesn't have to be on a weekly call or a monthly call or whatever. And if you recognize that there are different ways to basically do alignment activities and so forth, then maybe you call less meetings, or maybe you make use of that time a little bit better. So it's just a way of kind of taking stock up front. So the next component of this tool is group stages. And so the amount of time you spend on doing the work itself versus aligning around strategies or priorities depends to some extent on the stage of the group. And this is a tool just to help you get more cognizant of that and to track that so that you can decide how much time you want to be spending in different things. It takes sort of the classic 4 group stages: forming, storming, norming, and performing. And it basically asks you to fill in, okay, what percentage of your group is currently in each of these stages. So if I have a team of 10 people, and today is August 29th, and if we just got together for the first time and I really haven't had any conversations about any of this, then we might be in the forming stage right now. 100% of the whole group, all 10 people are in the forming stage, and no one's in the storming, norming, or performing stage. And so if you want to take notes, project kicking off. So then on a regular basis, you can basically look at this, whether it's a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and really start filling this in and tracking how things are evolving. So maybe a month later, I want to do the same exercise and I want to say, we've had a lot of conversations about what our goals are, how we want to work together, and so forth. The team is pretty good about that. So we're out of that forming stage. We actually had a lot of conflict over the past month but not necessarily conflict, but just figuring out what we actually meant about things through doing work together. So we did that, and we're still not entirely through, but maybe we're mostly through that, and we're really in the norming stage here. So we're just kind of processing what we've learned. Maybe it's actually more of this, and we're starting to perform. So that gives you a sense of where the team is. And then maybe a month later, you're really out of these stages. Maybe there's still a tiny bit of norming that's happening, but ultimately you're mostly in performing. And that seems good for the most part for your team. What is right and what is not for different teams is going to depend on context. And you can see if you click on the dashboard, it basically takes this data and it shows the evolution of the different stages. So in this first stage, at the beginning of August or the end of August, everyone was informing, and then you kind of had a mixture a month later, and now you're squarely in the performing stage. One thing to keep in mind about how this is used, the example I gave was if you have just a pretty static team of individuals who have all gotten together at the same time. That's rarely the situation for groups. So one scenario is that you have a team that's been around, but there's been some turnover. And so your percentages might basically change based on whether or not you have new people. Another scenario is you might be working with a network. You might be working with lots of partners. Some people might have been in on the project from the very beginning. Other people might have come in later. And so while 60% of your group might have already been aligned and are in sort of that performing stage, there might be a set of new people who are in the forming or storming stage. And you need to make sure you address that and make time for that. So again, like the previous tool, the abundance tool, the purpose of this tool is to just get really concrete about the makeup of your group and the stages in which they are. And that's going to help you be a little bit more specific about how you basically design, how you decide how much time you're taking on various things. And so then the last piece is basically a group activities log, and it's very simple. It's really meant to be filled out on a weekly basis, although if you want to fill it out on a daily basis, you can, or maybe even a bi-weekly basis. And so you basically log your different activities. So today, maybe I had a 2-hour phone call with my engineers, for example. And so the question is, okay, what was the purpose of that phone call? Was it a getting shit done call? Was it like a maintenance call? Or was it an aligning call? I'm not sure if these categories are the right categories, but we'll figure it out. So a maintenance call might be something like a standing call where you're just updating each other on status, or you're fixing something that just needs to be fixed on a regular basis, right? So kind of getting on the same page. Aligning means something like, okay, let's align around our principles, our strategy, our priorities, that sort of stuff. And then getting shit done is like you're actually doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. These categories might not be right, so this is something that I'll explore in other iterations. But the point is for you to decide, okay, what are the categories? And it might be multiple categories. If you do this over time and you log the different kind of meetings, and again, it's not meant to be perfect. It's just to give you a sense of how much time you're spending on different things. Over time, you'll have basically a log of where you're spending your time. And you can basically decide, well, are we spending too much time on the quote unquote getting shit done stuff and not enough time on the alignment, or vice versa? Simply having a log will basically help you make those decisions and also help you make adjustments. So this is sort of what I have right now. I'm looking forward to people using this and rapidly iterating and seeing if it's useful.